Shabbat Shalom. We all know our parts. Lie, lie, lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to congregants, to friends, to guests, to all who are joining us to celebrate Shabbat, all who join us in the live stream, all of you who are here in person in the sanctuary. We're honored to be joined by our congregational president, Hank Bernstein, on our bima, as well as both of our Rabbi Emeriti tonight, Rabbi Kuhn and Rabbi Fuchs. To ensure that we are praying as one community tonight, let's take a moment. If you're on the live stream, introduce yourself in the chat, in the comments. And if you're here in person, please take a moment to find someone new to greet and wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. I love all the greeting. This is wonderful. Tomorrow morning, we are so excited that Will Perkins will be called to the Torah as he becomes a bar mitzvah. And we are honored that Will is here tonight with his parents, Nicole and Dan, and his sister Zoe, to help lead us in our Shabbat blessings, beginning with our candle lighting on page 2.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
We continue with the Kiddush on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabat kodsho be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר לציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים.
L'chaim. All right. Mazel Tov, Will. Mazel Tov, Perkins family. So excited to celebrate with you tomorrow. One of my favorite memories of taking our teens, our high schoolers, to Israel was staying in a Bedouin village in the Negev desert. We arrived just as the sun was setting, and by the time we came out of our host's tent after dinner, it was evening. I'll never forget the look on our students' faces as they looked up at the night sky and saw the Milky Way and more stars than perhaps they'd ever seen in their lives. With the light pollution that we have in Philadelphia, we don't always get those same kind of views. And I think looking up at that night sky, we had a chance to perhaps glimpse a taste of what our ancient ancestors might have seen in that exact same desert. This Shabbat, we begin the book of Numbers, known in Hebrew as Bamidbar, in the wilderness or in the desert. I don't think it's by coincidence that our religion began Bamidbar, in the wilderness. Without the distractions of our large metropolis, we are better able to sense God's presence. Imagine our ancestors looking up at that night sky in awe, the billions of stars, and contemplating their role in the cosmos, and the amazing gratitude they must have felt to behold such wonders. Shabbat is a taste of that wilderness. For one day, we have the ability to be transported from the hustle and bustle of daily life in Philadelphia to a place of quiet contemplation, a place of awe and wonder, a place of connection to the divine. And so we take a deep breath and release as we enter Bamidbar, the wilderness of Shabbat. We begin first on page 12 with Lechune Ranena.
Lechu niranena, yai lai 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 lai, la Adonai, lai 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 lai, Naria, lai 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 lai, Letzur Yish'enu. Lai, 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 lai. Let us sing unto God, maker of all, sure and strong. Let all of creation from mountain to sea hear our song. Lechu niranena, lai, 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 la Adonai, lai, 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 Naria, lai, 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 Letzur Yish'enu, lai, 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 lai. For all of the wonders and all of God's light, we rejoice. So now let us listen with all of our hearts to hear God's voice. Lechu niranena, lai, 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 la Adonai, lai, 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 Naria, lai, 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 Letzur Yish'enu, lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai.
Page 13, the bottom paragraph, Yismechu Hashamayim.
Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Betagel Haaretz. Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Betagel Haaretz. Yiram Hayam, Yiram Hayam, Yiram Hayam Umelo. 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 Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Betagel Haaretz.
I think we are sufficiently warmed up. We have the joy. We are ready to truly welcome Shabbat with the words of Lecha Dodi, pages 20 and 21.
Lecha Dodi, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבורך, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתחילה. לך lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela likrat Shabbat לכו ונלכה כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך ומאורי אורי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה
Please rise.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה.
Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is at all time. Even at unlikely times and through unlikely places, there is no place on earth without the presence. Page 28.
Lai 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 Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed Lai 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 lai
On the top of page 33, we read together, As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated, page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
The top of page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Lay 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 מי כמוך בא אלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך רעבנך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים זה אלינו ואמרו זה אלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל.
Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. We continue with the tefillah on pages 46 and following. Please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל, אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומטיל אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Continue on page 278 with our counting of the Omer. We are almost there. We are almost at Mount Sinai, one day away. Tomorrow evening, we will celebrate Shavuot, the giving of the Torah, and we have been on a journey from redemption to revelation, from Passover to Shavuot, and tonight will be our last Shabbat where we count the Omer. And so we read our blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom tisha v'arba'im yom shehem shiv'a shavuot le'omer. Today is the 49th day of the Omer, which is 7 weeks of the Omer. We conclude our Amidah with blessings of peace, page 61.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tanzim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam V'tol Be'einecha Levarech Et Amcha Yisrael Bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם תשים לעולם תשים לעולם.
We take moments now for silent prayer.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 לה. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
In a moment, we will continue with our prayer for healing, which can be found on page 5 in your service program. A prayer against gun violence, written by Alden Solovey after the shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. God of the slain, God of the murdered and the victim, the voice of lamentation echoes across the land, wailing beside graves opened too soon. Source of justice, rock of strength and truth, you call upon us to stand in the name of common sense and reason, to witness on behalf of the innocent and the cut down. Bless those that dedicate themselves to gun control. Grant them fortitude and perseverance. May the work of their hands never falter, nor despair deter them from their holy calling. Bless those who are healing from the trauma of gun violence. Grant them lives of health and prosperity, joy and peace. Blessed are you, God of all being, who summons us to choose life. And if you are holding someone in your heart in need of healing tonight, I invite you to write their names in the chat or to speak their names aloud at this time.
El na refana la nu. El na refana la nu. Call and response. Dear God of our ancestors, help us renew our faith. Grant us a perfect healing. Bring peace to all our days. El na refana la nu. El na refana la nu. Restore our strength of body. Help clarify our minds. Refresh our tired spirits. Rejuvenate our life. El na refana la nu. El na refana la nu. Thank you for all these blessings throughout our days and nights. We celebrate this journey, this precious gift of life. El na refana la nu. El na refana la nu. El na refana la nu. El na refana la nu.
We turn our prayers to prayers of gratitude. What a joy it is tonight, Marcia Biggs, to honor your 30-year so far anniversary at Rodef Shalom. 30 years of your spirit of joy and hard work and partnership and gratitude. And to welcome you forward for a blessing with our clergy on the Bima now. As Marcia makes her way forward, I invite our rabbis emeriti to join us, Rabbi Fuchs and Rabbi Kuhn. And would Marcia's husband, Roy, and members of their family stand at your seats as Marcia comes forward? And would members of our Rodef Shalom professional team stand at your seats as well? And I see some past members of the team. Please stand as well. We're so glad to have you here. Makor HaChayim, source of life, we thank you for the blessings of community, friendship, and fellowship, and for everything and everyone that enriches our lives.
We turn to you now with special gratitude to share in the joy of Marcia Biggs as she marks 30 years of working at Congregation Rodef Shalom.
Be with her now and always. May you, Marcia, be blessed with health and happiness and with strength to continue to serve our community.
Marcia, we honor you for the gifts that you bring to this sacred community, a commitment to each congregant and to completing your important work with grace, good humor, and humility. We pray that each day will bring you an abundance of blessing.
Marcia, you sustain and nourish our congregation. You work alongside us to bring the light of justice and compassion into our broken world. You bear witness to our lives and accompany us on our journey. For your dedication to our community, may God grant you wholeness, fulfillment, and peace. And let us all say, Amen.
For this blessing and all of our simchas, all of our special occasions, we join together on page 344 in Shehechianu, our blessing of gratitude.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higi'anu lazman hazeh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higi'anu lazman hazeh.
Thank you. Mazel tov.
We are also marking 50 years of women rabbis, and Marcia, that math means that so far you've been at Rodef Shalom for about 2/3 of the time women have been rabbis in America. That's pretty good math, pretty good longevity here. Today marks the 50th anniversary of women rabbis in America. June 3rd, yeah, okay. Was that my husband? Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad you feel that way. June 3rd, 1972, Sally Presand becomes the first woman ordained in our country and the first woman ordained at a seminary. And now over 1,000 women and non-binary rabbis later, we understand even honored firsts are complicated. There was a woman rabbi ordained before Sally, Rabbi Regina Jonas, history has since revealed, was the first woman in the world to be ordained. Although not from a seminary, Rabbi Jonas was ordained in Germany in 1935 and served the community in Berlin, and then during the Holocaust, pastored in Theresen until she was murdered at Auschwitz. Jonas's rabbinate cut tragically short by the Nazis and her story buried, Rabbi Sally Presand always reminds us Rabbi Regina Jonas was the first. But the history predates Rabbi Regina Jonas as well. For the story of firsts is also the story of almosts. Just several years ago, when Hebrew Union College, or HUC, the Reform Seminary, was in a search for a new president, my teacher, Rabbi Dr. Carol Balin, applied and advanced as a finalist. She did not get the job. After a different candidate, a man, was appointed president, Dr. Balin reflected that when HUC eventually appoints a woman someday in the future, her own achievement as a finalist will be a part of that story. Oftentimes, in the journey of social change, the almosts take a next step. Yes, with excitement, I celebrate 50 years of women in the American rabbinate. And we should not be celebrating 50 years of women in the American rabbinate. We should be marking 100 years. Our Road of Shalom suffrage project has uncovered the impact of women's voting justice work. It is no coincidence that only 1 year after women get the vote in 1920, the Jewish community begins to take baby steps toward equality. Who here knows the name Martha Newmark? In 1921, Martha Newmark is taking courses at HUC and applies to join an academic track towards ordination. In 1922, the Central Conference of American Rabbis, CCAR, the Reform Rabbinic Association, which is independent from our seminary, at its annual convention, attended by rabbis and their wives, debates the question, do rabbis need to be men? In the middle of the men's discussion, the meeting chair turns over the floor to the wives. 3 women speak. It is then, 1922, that the men of the CCAR decide women cannot justly be denied the privilege of ordination 100 years ago because women spoke. How often social change is about who gets a voice. But back at the seminary, that next year, Even though the CCAR Rabbinic Association would accept her, the Hebrew Union College Seminary Board of Governors votes it down. Martha Newmark is denied a track to ordination. Indeed, the story of firsts is also the story of almosts. To be clear, Rabbi Sally Prezant was almost an almost. She later learned that Hebrew Union College, HUC president Dr. Nelson Glick's life goal became to ordain her. Apparently, his board still needed convincing. For in response to Sally's first inquiry, here is an excerpt from a letter from HUC, June 17th, 1963. Dear Miss Prezant, women are welcome in any of our courses, and we would be glad to discuss with you the various programs in which you might be interested. Since you state in your letter that your interests lean specifically to the rabbinate, we would have to inform you candidly that we do not know what opportunities are available for women in the active rabbinate, since we have, as yet, not ordained any women. Most women prefer to enter the field of Jewish religious education. Isn't it a common motto of change resistance? Well, they don't want access anyway. From a letter dated June 20th, 1963. Ms. Prezant, some clear knowledge on your part of what it will mean to you to have graduated from our school is essential for you prior to your thinking about entering. Isn't that a common strategy of change resistance? The waiting period. From Sally's not quite admission letter to limits on reproductive rights, it's interesting to look at the waiting periods that ask, are you sure you've really thought about this? That show up in resistance to social change. 3, not quite admittance, you can enroll, but we probably won't ordain you, letters later. May 14th, 1968. Dear Sally, first name basis, they must be old friends by now. Dear Sally, I am pleased to inform you officially that you have been admitted to the Rabbinic School of Hebrew Union College. Dr. Glick and the faculty join me in welcoming you and in expressing good wishes for your happiness and fulfillment in your studies in the rabbinic department. From that first letter in 1963 to Sally's acceptance letter in 1968, Dr. Glick must have been very busy. Finally, the Board of Governors is sufficiently convinced. Once Sally is enrolled at HUC, Dr. Glick is determined to help her and women become accepted by the reform movement. He invites her to lead a prayer at the Board of Governors meeting and to lead services when they are in town. And knowing congregations may be slow to invite her to lead, Dr. Glick arranges for speaking engagements to help prepare the field for her ordination. True wisdom, he helps her pave the path through inequitable circumstance. Still, what a burden Sally Prezant carries through the wilderness of those early years. And all with no peers, no women classmates or colleagues with whom she could share. During her student years, there are classmates who pose dating and marriage options, and there are faculty who encourage it because they think maybe if we can get her married, we can get rid of her. Beyond the initial achievement, being the first means stretching people's imagination about identity. Can they see you as a rabbi and as a non-male all at once? As a woman, as a mother, as a wife, a CEO, and a religious authority? Being the first means climbing out of the boxes of definition, such as gender roles. It is not a coincidence that in her daily climb to be respected as a rabbinic leader, Sally does not find space to marry and have children, as she originally thought she might. I believe she knows how harshly she may have been judged had she integrated the identities beyond people's imagination. As a student and then as a rabbi, instead her focus is on being the best. For being first means there is no room for mediocrity. She always feels she needs to be better. We owe her a debt for her sacrifice, but also, most of all, for her lessons. Rabbi Presand's lessons. Rabbi Presand teaches humor, and if she can maintain a sense of humor, we all can. Rabbi Presand teaches us to appreciate allies, from Dr. Glick to her own classmates, who she likes to share, all spontaneously stood in solidarity at her moment of ordination. To the head of job placement who, when she could not get hired and wanted to write a pointed article, told her it would destroy her career to do so, and instead he would take the risk. He would write an article with these points to use his power to open people's eyes. Rabbi Presand teaches us to not lead with ego. A symbol of controversy in her time, she does not get sucked into conflict. In response to offensive comments, she just says, "Thank you for your opinion," and walks away. To the B'nai Mitzvah guests who say, "You're the first woman rabbi I've ever seen," she responds, "I hope I won't be the last." And that has been the essence of her rabbinate. Rabbi Presand always says, "I've tried to not only open the door, but also to hold it open for others to follow in my footsteps." We at Rodef Shalom have felt the impact of Rabbi Presand, holding the door open for others. I recently had the privilege of interviewing the two women who served as rabbis at Rodef Shalom before my time here. Our first, Rabbi Patrice Heller, began in 1981 and served for 5 years. Our second, Rabbi Ellen Greenspan, began in 1986 and served for 4 years. Many of you remember them well. As much as Rabbi Heller and Rabbi Greenspan found their work here meaningful and loved their connections with congregants, it was not easy for these vatikot, these early women. No doubt, I owe them a debt. We all do. And I honor their contribution to our journey. Last night, in a national gathering of female-identifying and non-binary rabbis, Rabbi Presand, now well into retirement, shared. She said she would have thought we would have made more progress by now. Indeed, the journey continues in the work of pay equity, career advancement, family leave, reform movement leadership, and combating gender misconduct and bias, and in the work of belonging for all marginalized identities, that we may build a Jewish clergy and a Jewish community that reflects the multi-gender, multi-ability, multiracial, multi-generational diversity of the Jewish people. I honor 50 years of women in the American rabbinate with gratitude, and we should not be marking 50 years. We should be marking 100 years, at least. So, as we celebrate the firsts and the almosts, their stories compel us to ask, what should the Jewish community have understood and acted upon 100 years ago? And today, what should we understand and act upon now for the sake of community, equity, and the future of the Jewish people? Our work for the next year and the next 50 is to understand who are the firsts and the almosts who need to show us the future. Rabbi Sally Prezand opened doors for gender justice and beyond. May we be inspired to open doors and to hold them open for those who follow Rabbi Prezand and for those who will follow us all. Shabbat Shalom. We continue in our service with Aleinu, page 282 and then page 287. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. These words from Chana Senesh. There are stars up above. So far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. This week, our congregation observes Yahrzeit for Rogine Appleby, Donald Beckman, Alan H. Berkman, Rhoda Barbro Biberman, Leon Bien, Stephen A. Bien, Rosalind Biskind, Aaron Braveman, Max Bree, Rosalind Bremen, I. Jerome Broder, Nathan E. Bergauer, Caroline T. Setti, Kathy Cohen, Nina Cohen, Reba Kaiser Cohn, Joseph Fink, Benjamin Frankel, Alma Frankel, Jeanette Ullman Friedenberg, Solomon Friedenberg, Eve Goldweber, Pearl Marquis Grass, Maurice Greenfogel, Esther Manko Gross, Gertrude Z. Gubernick, Albert J. Hahn, Bernard A. Hamovitz, Samuel Hartz, Bertha Isaac Henley, Sybil Alcus Hers, Edwin Sidney Hessler, Samuel P. Hirsch, H. Irma Hirschberg, Louis R. Horn, Jorge Isakowitz, Joseph Jacobs, Mickey Kahn, Patsy Kaminsky, Alfred B. Castor, Alfred D. Katz, Harriet G. Kaliski, Molly Kins, Ray W. Klein, Sylvia Konigsberg, Caroline Weil Kuhn, Isaac Gold Kuhn, Lois Liedrich Tolson, Joseph B. Liebman, Elizabeth Lipkin, Marcia G. Lipschitz, Irene C. Lipschitz, Emma Gersley Loeb, Victor Lowenstein, Raymond S. Lundy, Robert C. Lupin, Paul Maderer, Alfred Mann, Nora Rodman Marymore, Martin Meyerson, Gordon Moses, Cecilia Moskowitz, Henry M. Obermeyer, Graciela Padilla de Maury, Elizabeth J. Paul, Abraham M. Rechtman, Martin S. Robinson, Ruth Rockauer, Rebecca Rosenbaum, Molly Wallerstein Rosewater, Beatrice Handler Sachs, Otto T. Salzer, Abe Schlesinger, Hyman Schubert, James Schwartz, Bessie Fried Schwartz, Lillian Stein Circus, Morris Sidewater, Arthur Silverblatt, Joseph Snitzer, Abraham O. State, Joseph F. Stein, Andy Stern, Morton L. Stern, Samuel Stoller, Maurice L. Strauss, Blanche L. Sondheim, Samuel G. Switsky, Amelia H. Teller, Leander Walter Jr., Stella Kornfeld Weber, Samuel Pat Weiss, Shirley Goodman Weiss, Herbert Howard Wessel, Herbert Weil Sr., Abraham Wolf, Catherine Davis Woolgen. We add the names of those who've been taken from our midst, but not from our hearts, in these most recent days, for whom we observe Shloshim. Francis Rosenbluth. And if you are observing Yahrzeit or Shloshim for a loved one whose name was not called, I invite you to please add it to the comments or speak it aloud now. Together, we honor their memories as, turning to page 294, we rise for the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divarach riutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu. La'ela min kol virchata v'shirata, chushbachata v'nechamata, zamiran ve'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Hosei shalom bimromav, huya se shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring comfort to the bereaved and peace to each of you. And together we say, Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael,
wish you a Shabbat Shalom. For those who are joining us for dinner in honor of Marcia, we will meet you just across the hall in the community room where we will share some food and some more words of gratitude together. Please note the Shabbat program for lots of information, including information about our Shabbat celebrating Pride next week. And if this is your first time to Rosh Shalom, please be sure to introduce yourself to Stephen Scher, who is waving at the back of the sanctuary and looks forward to greeting you. These words from the poem, "Let My People Go That They May Serve You," written by Merrill Feld in honor of Rabbi Sally Prezand and of so many others who break stained glass ceilings. For so long, the world was unimaginable with you in it. Now we cannot imagine a world without you. We bless the work of your hands. We bless the work of your hearts. We are blessed to be here still, just at the beginning.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless us and keep us.
Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka.
May the light of God's Spirit shine upon us and be good to us.
Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God's presence be with us and bring us peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.